Hello everybody, hope you guys are doing well. So continuing on our journey, today we would be trying to understand how call, bind and apply works and what we need this and why we need them. So there's a problem with this, right? Now the problem is in a function, the this binding is with respect to the way the function is the way the function is getting called or invoked, right? Basically what I'm trying to say is now the way I'm invoking or calling the function is what defines the this binding. So now here if I'm using user dot greet to call the function, right? So hence the this binding is perfectly giving me Alex. If I only call it like greet func, if I just assign this variable to greet func and then I call this, now what is going to happen is since I'm not doing the binding to the function, the this will not be linked to the add function, right? It instead what it will do is if there is nothing present here, then instead it links to the global object. But then there is one caveat to it. The caveat is basically arrow functions, right? The arrow functions basically in arrow functions, the this binding is with respect to the way the function is declared or the local or the lexical context, right? But if you see, for example, if you say this in this, say the now so local when we say about lexical context, so lexical context is basically related to the scope where we define or where we write our code, right? And how it's done. So lexical scope is mostly dealing with functions and blocks, right? So the difference between functions and blocks is so anything within parentheses is a block. The moment we add a function keyword here, it kind of becomes our function scope, right? So lexical scope applies to both of them. So that means if I have a function declared and then inside that I'm using, so for example, let me clear out this. So what I'm trying to say, so if there is a no, I don't only need a, so if there is a, say I have a function present here which is lexical, right? Now inside this, if I define an arrow function, inside this if I have an arrow function being present, now this arrow function is, because it's present in this lexical environment, it will automatically refer to this lexical scope. So there is no need to for us um, to do the linking here. So that is one advantage of arrow functions as compared to normal functions. So hence to solve this issue, we need to manually add this binding. For this, we use call. For this itself, we'll be using call, bind, and apply. Let's see how each of them is going to work with respect to each other, right? Okay, so now, okay, let's see. Okay, okay. Now these are basically inbuilt methods using which you can control the way the this is being on functions, right? Now call. So call basically calls immediately calls a function and sets the this to the first argument which will be passed. So what does it do? So call immediately calls the function, immediately calls and sets the this to the first argument. Then we have, for example, let's see a code, right? So I have a code example here, and then let's see. So now basically this is my function. The console.log rating, I am this, okay, so now when I do, so this is the first argument. So now what does it do is these methods, it immediately calls the function and sets this to the first argument you pass. So what is the first argument I'm passing is person, right? So basically it is going to uh, hello, so basically what it is going to do is, so my this is my person, right? So it is going to, okay, so I'm going to refer my this to this object, right? So this is getting attached to what is present here. So whatever is present in person, that will be attached to the greet function. So now my function is referring to the first parameter that is passed. Now apply, so this works just like apply, but instead it takes an argument. Instead you can have an array. So basically we are using this hello as well, right? So what we can do is, so the way this is going to work is, so now greet dot call person. So now my this is referring to this object. Now I'm doing this dot name. So this will be basically represented by person, right? I mean, it will be what do you say? It will be changed with person, and then so this dot name. So I'm going to print Alex over here, and so the dollar is this parameter which is getting passed inside this function. Okay, now basically instead of so if you want to have an array that we need to pass, we use apply, right? It's the same thing, but then when you already have arguments stored in an array and you want the array to be passed here, so then you can use apply. Now bind is returns a new function with this so now remember we haven't permanently settled this, right? So here this is still referring, so after this execution, I mean at only this line is where my this has been binded, right? But then if I use it on a line below it again, that this might be referred to something else. If I want to do a function with this permanently set, so we can what we can do is we can call bind. Uh, so what we can do is, now in bind we can delay the execution, like it isn't immediately invoked. Instead it is going to return a new function with uh, with that having a permanent this binding, but then that is not invoked immediately, right? So let's see like an example of bind. So it creates a new function. The new function has this permanently bound to the value that we provide. It doesn't call the function immediately, unlike, in fact, it's going to wait for a time to be called. Now okay, so because once we detach a method from an object, like passing it to a variable, it loses this reference. So bind is going to permanently bind it to the user, and it goes. Okay, so now let's see this example. Let's make this medium. Let's have it white. The const user. So now initially so this is what I'm doing is I'm binding this, right? So this is so user dot greet, but then here I bind, but in the next statement again I'll be undefined, because the way I'm calling the function is what is going to define how this binding works, right? So instead what we do is we kind of so we do user dot greet dot okay. So we inside the user we go to greet and we bind this greet to this user itself. Now this is permanent binding that is happening, and it is been assigned to greet, right? So the moment we'll call this, we are going to invoke this instance as well. So this dot name okay, this so here since I'm referring to the current instance, so this dot name is going to print Alex dot something. Hello, I'm Alex. So even if I have removed now that this is permanently set over here, so it is permanent and until its execution is complete or the main stack function is taken out of the stack, right? The main function. So JavaScript are all like functions, right? I mean, um, so main with the way JavaScript execute is first is a global function that is put in the stack, right? So this binding will remain until this global function execution is still present. Once this is taken out, this binding is also lost. Okay. So the way I have done is I have done user.greet. So first is basically I have accessed this member and then I have bound this by saying whatever is passing is getting referred to greet, right? And that is assigned to my bound greet. So then even if I call this now, it will print the correct instance, which is this instance of my user. Um, uh, okay, yep, that's all for call, plan, blind, bind, and bind. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.